Da 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 da. Boom boom. Da 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 da. Welcome to the Mountain of Challenge. All right, hey guys, welcome to another Train Sim Classic video. Today we've got the Saluda Grade, and this route is so much more than that. It goes from Asheville, North Carolina to Spartanburg, South Carolina. Take about an hour to run on average, and that stupid little cheesy intro I did there just a moment ago, that was the Norfolk Southern's training video, which you can find online. If you know, you know, kind of thing. If you don't, I would recommend going and watch it. It is a classic. It is a very cool video. But anyway, this is of course for Train Sim Classic. Now this is under High Iron Simulations moniker, but it's actually a lot of guys just under that High Iron Simulations name that made this specific route, and we're going to take a look at it today. This place is kind of special to me. Personally, I've been here numerous times to the old Saluda Grade in this area, namely up north of here in the Green River. But I've been coming up to this area, the Smokies and the Blue Ridge, since I was just a little bastard, and now I'm a big bastard. But I love this place dearly, and I know a little bit about it, so I'm going to try and get dug in on this route like a tick on a dog's ass. So it might be a long one. So let's get started. Alrighty, so as I usually like to do to kick things off a little bit, we're just going to take a quick perusal at the manual, which you can find on the Steam store. You don't have to purchase the route to look at the manual. You can just open it right up there on the page itself. But as it states at the top, High Iron Simulations, realistic routes and packs for Train Sim Classic. And this is, funnily enough, I'm pretty sure it's not a word. This is deemed a pro-range item. So we'll definitely have to see about that, but we're just going to look through here. It's going to tell you all about the route, tell you the stock, all that good stuff, blah, 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 legendary Saluda, Mountain of Challenge, that whole thing. Shows you the grade. That's nice, having the actual grade chart there. The stock you're going to get, some of the interiors, your signaling, as this is in a Norfolk Southern era. There's your rolling stock. Of course, we're going to look at all this in due time. I just want to get down to the bottom, look at some of the names. It's going to tell you about the scenarios. Quite a few scenarios come with this. All right, contributors: Michael Stefan, track work, signaling, route building, 3D assets, rolling stock development, and deliveries. So a lot of your rolling stock that you're going to get with this route is going to be Michael Stefan's stuff. And a lot of it is and were freeware pieces of stock hosted on Golden Age of Railroading, his personal website, which, you know, I still use to this day for some of the older rolling stock, but it's basically freeware that's been repainted to a degree. I know some people always argue with me about that. That's totally fine. But that's generally a lot of these high iron simulation packs that you're going to get. You're basically paying for skinned freeware stock. So just like to get that out there, out in the open. Gary does all research, route building, and scenario development. And of course, you know, he takes the name High Iron Simulations for this route. DTM and Caesar Pack, that's actually, I don't know why it says DTM and Caesar Pack. It's the same thing. DTM is Caesar Pack. So he did the EMD, GP35, SD40-2 high nose and low nose with X Southern and X Norfolk Western variants. And that dreaded tank car, I'm sorry. Just, that thing needs to die in a fire. It's not my favorite. Anyway. Oh, I'd also like to mention that Gary, in one of his 17,000 articles prior to the route being released, said that these are brand new, all brand new models here. This GP35 and the 2-2s. So that'll be interesting to look at. Wayne Campbell, procedural scenery, distant scenery, terrain texturing, 3D assets, technical testing, and advisory. Wayne Campbell's another one of those triple OGs, kind of like Michael Stefan. Been making stuff for North American content for Railworks for a very, very long time. So very nice stuff from both of those guys. Smokebox and Mike Rennie, I'm sure that's a name that a lot of you out there know. Of course, he contributed the brake thing, the advanced braking script or something like that. And I'm sure he tested it. Says refinements to locomotive and rolling stock performance. He also did an air brake tutorial on the Grade. We'll try and take a look at that in a minute. Of course, we'll skip around and look, because you're not going to be able to operate these things as it were in real life. So this video that he made is a way to kind of translate that into Railworks. G Trax and Rick Grout, again, one of the OG triple OGs for Railworks North American stuff. A lot of his assets. He's made some of the best routes over the years for North American stuff. Paul Dolezal, Gary's Brothair, custom 3D assets. I know he did a lot of custom 3D assets as well for the Hanover sub, which is still one of my favorite North American routes for train sim. And yada yada. So that's that. Let's go ahead and start taking a look around. Alrighty, so I'd also like to point out, if you are kind of unsure about this area or this route, and I know this has got the moniker Saluda Grade, but there is so much more to this area, and that's one of the things that always kind of gets under my skin a little bit. This isn't just about the Grade. I mean, yes, it's interesting, craziest mainline standard gauge road east of the Mississippi, yada yada. But this is a beautiful area, and it's got a ton of very old railroad history within it. That being said, there is a freeware Saluda Grade, which is just like a 7 or 8 mile section, I think, somewhere thereabouts, of the Grade in the town of Saluda itself, which you can go and download on the Steam Workshop if you kind of want to get a taste of what that's like without dropping $40, because yes, this of course is $39.99. So again, this goes from Asheville, North Kakalaki to Spartanburg, South Kakalaki. I'll go ahead and pop the map open here. This is the route you're going to get. This is Spartanburg down here, right on the border just about of South Carolina and North Carolina, down into Piedmont. The more you go this way, it's a little hilly, and then you run into what's called like an escarpment, where there's no kind of build up to the mountains. It's just bam, you're at the Blue Ridge Mountains. Hence, they had to build Saluda Grade the way they did in the 1800s. And that's why that's there basically. And then up here, you've got Asheville, North Carolina, which is a very large town. It's easily the largest town in western North Carolina, and it's settled right in the heart of some of the highest mountains in the Appalachian chain, and kind of a valley. So if you look all around here, we're in Asheville, North Carolina right now. This is looking south basically. You can see the magnificent Blue Ridge all around us. I love this area so much. In fact, I'm going to be going back up here hopefully in the next month or two, which I'm just completely geeked for. But they did a pretty okay job with it. One of the things that I kind of noticed right off the bat is, if you've been to this area or seen video pictures, all that good stuff, there's if it's summertime and it's in the warmer months, there's a crap ton of kudzu, and you got mountain laurel everywhere. Anywhere that there's like water present, you got mountain laurel, which blooms in the spring, and it's got these giant white flowers. And it looks like they didn't really do anything to kind of add to the vegetation. It looks like they just used the same old tired ass vegetation pack that they've been using for routes since the dawn of man, since man started walking bipedally, if you will. So it would have been nice if they'd have just made a freaking mountain laurel tree, taken a couple of weeks to make that tree, and then just place it all around the map. And then, of course, little swaths of kudzu. The tiny bit I've looked around so far, I'm not seeing that at all, which kind of stinks, because that's this area big time. I mean, there's a ton of other vegetation and trees, but a lot of it's kudzu and mountain laurel. But so this is about 70 miles. It's considered pro range. Although it's pro range, it has no runaway timer down in the Saluda section, which became electronically timed. Now, I've heard people say that can be done within a scenario with, I don't really know how in-depth scenarios, totally work, but we'll see if somebody may one day somehow figure that out to get the actual really intriguing part of the Saluda Grade to actually work. So again, that's one of the things where, I don't know why they named it Pro Range, so to speak. But they also said that this is supposed to be circa 1980s to early 90s. Now, I've already noticed a couple of things right off the bat looking around. That's kind of odd. Seeing some odd things here and there. But of course, we'll go over that. That's quite a broad gap in between, railroad eras from, let's say, from 80s to early 90s. So, and then we've got, of course, 3 air quotes, all new. And then I put LOL in parentheses there in my little notes here. High nose X Southern SD40-2 dual control stand. Low nose X Norfolk and Western SD40-2 dual control stand. And X Southern GP35 high nose. So we are currently in Asheville. So let's start looking around Asheville. We're going to make our way all the way to the other side of the route, and then we're going to save the rolling stock later in the video, and we're going to actually try and run something down the grade and see how this rolling stock handles on the Saluda Grade. I'd also like to point out, while this route was never truly that busy, it was definitely the busiest in its early years in the 1800s. But it was ran predominantly for a couple of manifests, local trains out of Spartanburg, a couple of coal trains from, up in Andover, Virginia, and other various places going to, coal-fired power stations, mainly North Carolina and beyond. But this was, it went under a lot of different names. It changed hands many times, but as it were recently, it was either the Asheville subdivision or the Southern or Norfolk Southern W-Line. Now, the old hats, the old hoggers, and that ran this line and lived up here, I think they typically called it the Asheville Spartanburg line, basically, just hearkening back to its older days. All right, guys, so it's history time a little bit. So the original line, this line being that we're looking at here, of course, it was built in like the 1870s, I want to say, and the original line itself, started down in South Carolina, and it was eventually built to Saluda, and then later further built into Asheville up in North Carolina, which is currently where we're at. And then it fully connected Spartanburg, South Carolina to Asheville, North Carolina via the Blue Ridge. It, of course, Saluda in this line is the steepest standard gauge railroad main line in the U.S. and remained in operation until about 2001 when the last train ran over it. It is now, sadly, it has been rail banked, or whatever the term is. Nothing has ran on it in quite a long time. They've pretty much officially cut the line up. And basically a few miles east and west of Saluda itself, there's a ton of washouts. It's in a very bad state of disrepair, and it's kind of sad seeing that and hearing about it. And they've been talking for very many years about turning it into what's known as a rail trail. So here in the States, you've got a lot of old railroads, sometimes short lines, sometimes main lines, that are turned into like pedestrian traffic type stuff, so you can walk on it, jog, rollerblade, razor scooter, whatever the hell you want to do, ride a bike on it. And it's basically a like a giant sidewalk built on an old rail bed. That's what a rail trail is, and there's still talks going on in that to put that on Saluda. But honestly, thinking about that, if you guys, some of you that know what rail trails are, I can't imagine riding a freaking bike or even walking up that grade. That would be insane. They're never going to fix it. It's pretty much a done deal, but it's a bit sad nonetheless. But anyway, let's do Asheville here, and then we'll get down there, of course, and have a go around the Saluda, the namesake of the route. All right, so starting out, we're going to try and cover the line as a whole. Again, we're in Asheville, North Carolina, which is a pretty good-sized town. Like I said, it's the largest city in western North Carolina. basically nestled in a large valley and surrounded by the Blue Ridge Mountains, any which way you look out of the area. It was once a part of the Cherokee Nation, which is an indigenous peoples in this area in the southeast, and they use this area for hunting predominantly, bountiful hunting grounds as they used it for. Eventually, European settlers creeped into the area eventually. Let's get out of the map there. And it largely remained untouched during the Civil War because of the location, which was kind of funny. And uniquely, the area and the town, as it was known, contributed companies of soldiers to the Union and the Confederate efforts during the Civil War, which is kind of interesting for the area that it was in. The city was eventually reached by rail in, I think, about 1880 via the Western North Carolina Railroad from Salisbury, North Carolina, of course, becoming part of the Southern Railway eventually in 1894. Asheville is known for a lot of things, but one of the biggest things it's probably known for is the Biltmore estate, the railroad bajillionaire tycoon industrial magnate dude. Had a home built here, his relatives anyway, and it's the Biltmore estate. What we're looking at over here is where the Biltmore estate would be. I was kind of hoping they would have added like a little 3D asset of the estate because it is absolutely massive. It is the largest private dwelling in the U.S. Ever built, still to this day. This little area right here is part of the estate itself. It's part of the grounds. I don't know what it is, probably some kind of maintenance gobbledygook, but the home itself is over here somewhere, and it's massive. I'm sure some of you guys know what it is. If not, look it up and you'll see what I'm talking about. But I'm not seeing it. It would have been cool if they'd have made like a 3D asset and had it like peeking through the trees. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't see it, from the railroad tracks or inside the cab. But it's what Asheville's known for is the Biltmore estate. It's huge. So it was built by the Vanderbilts in, I think, the 1800s, and basically a huge tourist destination for Asheville and Western North Carolina. Probably the biggest thing that brings a lot of tourists to the city in this immediate area itself. But yeah, private, largest home in the U.S. It's freaking massive. It's got all these grounds. It's got a huge model railroad building in it, separate building. Just, it's massive. It's gorgeous. I remember going there when I was very young, vaguely, but yeah, it's a cool place. So this is the yard here. This is looking northbound, basically. So if you were to follow this this track here, we'll kind of go back up it and go across the river. This river over here on the left is the largest river in the area. That's the French Broad River. Basically runs north to south in this general vicinity here. That up there, this is the end of the route, by the way, that would go to Knoxville, Tennessee. So one state over that way. So that's where that route would lead to. Let's go back here. The yard is fairly large in Asheville. If I'm not mistaken, I think Norfolk Southern still has a couple operations here in town, but it's largely been taken over by the, what is it called? The Blue Ridge Southern Railroad. They got some nice looking locomotives, by the way. And they actually ran part of the line that runs over to Saluda that's basically now defunct. So they would mainly operate out of this yard, if I'm not mistaken. You can look that up as well. They got some nice looking locomotives. I think it's called the Blue Ridge Southern. But a lot of old area. The other thing I'm kind of finding funky, if this is supposed to be 80s and 90s, Asheville was already pretty built up. I mean, in this general vicinity here, the town is right here, basically. Like, so the elbow of the tracks, how they sweep around that way to the left, when you look back this way is the town, basically, the town of Asheville. And there's, it would have been a lot more built up than this. This looks pretty sparse back in here, so that's, that's kind of meh, is what it is. Looks like they've got some nice tracks going on here with the ballast and the ground textures matching for the most part, as with the B&O Mountain Sub that High Iron did, as well as the Hanover Sub. You can see a lot of nice grass and weeds here and there. So it's grown over quite a bit. I mean, hell, from late spring to summer to early autumn in this area, it gets thick, very, very thick. But one of the things I'm noticing right off the bat, in which I noticed the foliage on this root, looking at pictures when they were, this tree just does something to me that fills me with a rage. These trees, this vegetation loft, whatever that they use, are very, very, very old, and they look ridiculous. This tree in particular. One of the other things that I'll note, of course, is if you change it to autumn, which, you know, up here in the Blue Ridge Mountain or the Smokies or whatever, this area, Southern Appalachian chain, is effing gorgeous during the fall. I'm not one of those leaves people, you know, changing of the leaves and all that business, but it looks incredible up here. But the photos they showed off were in autumn, and it looks like ass because it uses those very, very old trees, which do not look good. So this tree right here, I hate seeing this thing. It just ruins everything every time I see the thing. It looks like Krusty the Clown's head from The Simpsons. You know, you got the little top part on top of his bald head, and then the two pieces that, you know, jet out either side of his ear. I hate seeing that tree so much. You know, and then you got like the big purple one here, whatever the hell that's supposed to be. These are just really freaking old. I wish they would start using something else. That just, it's one of those things that gets under my skin. Start, you know, freshen it up a little. Add a few new things here and there. You know, just bend it a little bit. You know, do something different. Anyway, tree bitching aside, because that's all I see on these routes now is these trees. So this is looking northward. You can see the old Southern paddle boards there. Those are cool. We did have those, and somebody pointed this out to me because I totally forgot. We did have these for the Norfolk Southern Inline, the little route that Dovetail Games made themselves. These are very cool. I've always wanted one of these, you know, in real life to put on my wall here behind me. They're pretty large as they would be because they're on the side of the railroad, but it's essentially a crossing warning. So what that is two longs, a short, and a long. So basically, you know, how you pull the horn in the locomotive coming up to a graded crossing. That's what these old paddle boards are. I noticed in the videos when they were teasing this route that they had those in, so that's a nice touch. You know, I do appreciate the grasses and the weeds and all that, pretty thick line side. So it looks pretty decent around here so far. They got the land pretty spot on. They definitely did. You know, where a lot of the buildings are, the way the track's laid out. There are a couple level crossings around here. That's one right there. The way it basically follows the French Broad River over here, which, you know, it doesn't look that great. You're not really going to be seeing it. It looks like they tried to hide the banks with a line of trees over here, which I will commend them for that. You know, you're not really going to be seeing it over there any damn way. But this is a predominantly rocky river. It's not really, you know, muddy or, you know, soggy bottomed or anything like that. It's, you know, it's very rocky. But this area is highly industrial, or it was. Now it's, you know, some frou-frou coffee houses and probably a couple of IPA companies, you know, making their specialty beer and all that. But it was a definitely an industrial area right there. We got some, looks like some fuel racks right here. One of these little yard offices here I noticed. I think this might be new. I don't remember these. If you guys do, please let me know in the comments. As with anything you may notice or something that I say is completely wrong, please, as usual, comment. Holla holla. But there's a couple of these laying around. You know, it's a little shack, little yard shack, crew shack, whatever. Up here is more of the yard operations, you know, or the sideline stuff themselves. You know, car shops, yard shops, all that good stuff. This roundhouse, sadly, today in modernity, is no longer here. The only thing that's here anymore is basically the slab. I believe they tried to have that preserved. It just didn't work out. This, of course, being Norfolk Southern now. But that's no longer there, so the fact that that's there would lead me to believe that it's supposed to be older, because I think they started tearing that down in the very late 80s or the 90s. Then we've got pay no attention to the rolling stock. We'll be getting to that Yes, that is a Kuju SD40-2 next to the one that comes with the route. Got a couple of side tracks back. Let's see what they call them. Let's see what they call it here. It's a team track. Okay, that makes sense. There's our roundhouse. Good deal. So right here, there was always an office or a little bunkhouse or whatever. Now there is a new modern, larger building here, and there's also a little bit more stuff going on over here. There's a yard office over here, and actually a tower. It's several stories tall. It's actually probably a little bit further down, I believe. I think it's at the lead up here going across the river. Yeah, modernity, like nowadays in the last decade or so, or probably a little bit more than that, there's actually a tower over here that's part of the area. So we'll go on around the bend here. So as soon as we curve around the highway, this is a major highway that goes over this, well, that's not the major highway there, that's just a road. The major highway I was thinking of goes over the river back there. But you go around this bend here, and you kind of start to get away from the river a little bit with the Biltmore estate behind us, and that starts facing east towards South Kakalaki. Over here is a cement plant, or concrete plant, sorry. This has been here for quite some time. I think well, I know it's still operational. I don't know if it's rail served. Let's see what it says. Biltmore Construction Materials. Asheville East, that's part of the yard. Yeah, so that's funky. There is definitely a cement plant over here now. I think it was rail served at some point. I don't know. I don't know back then, really. I'm pretty sure it was there. I think it was there for quite a while. We got some more of the yard here. It's the east yard, of course, around the bend. Let's take a look at these signals. Those look okay. These are these new? I don't remember having any of these with the little ladders. They look all right. What's weird is when you look in the files in the Railworks directory, those are, I think they say B&O mountain subs, so they use bits of that. We got a little shorty, a little door signal over here. Yeah, those look okay. Again, the period's kind of funky because they say, 80s to mid 90s or whatever. So it's, and they do that on purpose so you can't really peg a specific thing, to the route or so on and so forth. But the east yard looks pretty good. It's nice and grassy. I love how they didn't just leave it, bare-assed with ugly ground texture that never look good, especially when you're more than a foot away from it. So it's nice that they added vegetation all through there. Here's another one of those little crew bunk houses or whatever, yard office. I don't remember seeing these either. This may be new. Like all this stuff, this roof kind of looks new to me. The rest of it, we got all the rolling stock laid out here, but we're not going to look at that right now. We're going to come back to that in a hot, skippy minute. Let's continue on down here. Let's see. What's this little river here? Gosh. I don't know the name of this little river here. Another major highway here. It's like a scrap yard back in there. So this crosses over the little river. Again, these old ass, like 2D water textures or whatever that is. Just let it go, guys. Make something new or just use the dovetail stuff. It's painful to look at. I mean, a lot of this area, a lot of these rivers and creeks are really rocky and not very deep either. Running off the top of the mountains and all that. And they kind of look like that, but that just looks horrible and not very pretty, so to speak. This goes into the southern bit of town. They've got the whistle boards there as well. Kind of our first crossing we'll look at. We'll see if they work later on. Look okay. One thing I noticed as well is like the vehicles. So if it's in the early 80s to 90s, I noticed they use some of the weird vehicles as well. I saw some of those buses floating around here that are like from the 40s that look ridiculous. They were going over this bridge here. Of course, now they're not. Yeah, I saw those earlier. It's kind of like how they went with the weird car and truck and bus stuff on the Boston Springfield route they released. Kind of the same thing. Like, it's weird. Like, some of the cars look okay and they kind of fit the era. But then there's some stuff that not so much. So the further down we get here, it's just kind of a triangle, if you will. So if you cut that way, that is the also infamous to this area and, you know, railroading in the southeast as a whole. That's the old Fort Loops that goes that way over to Salisbury, North Kakalaki. That would be the more modern route that they would have used for most things, rather than going down Saluda. Because a lot of, you know, you go down Saluda, you got a double, triple, quadruple a train. You know, it's just kind of a bit less efficient in railroad terms. And you know how railroads got, you know, the newer the age we're in, it's all about them shareholders and, you know, making quick money, making a quick buck. So anyway, this way is the way we're going to go. It goes down to Saluda, over to South Carolina. This too also goes to South Carolina, but this goes up through the mountains at a much less grade. I think the grade this way is I think the average is like 1.6 or something like that. But it's not as direct. But that's where this goes. This is the old Fort Loops, which also, have those been officially rail banked yet? I know a lot of you guys might know the old Fort Loops. Another one of those cool routes. I'd kind of like to see it in Train Sim Classic, if I'm completely honest, because there's some beautiful scenery off that way as well. But let's look at a map, see how far that actually goes. Yeah, he didn't even name it. Dirty dogs. All right. So anyway, Old Fort Loops that way, also into South Carolina. A lot of industrial stuff over here as well. So this looks okay. It's pretty much what this area is going to look like. This building is interesting. What in the hell? What is that noise? I guess just industry sound. Anyway, this little area up here is called Biltmore Village. Right here. Yeah, just thought I'd throw that out there. Anyway, also about that roundhouse, forgot to mention, that was built in like 1924. The roundhouse back up here in the yard. So it's fairly old. And I think the operational peak, which it saw, you know, the most action was probably like in the 40s. You know, like the early 40s, dieselization era. But Blue Ridge Southern did work through here. So Blue Ridge Southern is a Class 3 short line. And they've got like 90 operational miles in western North Carolina, which is this area. Now, they are owned by Watco, and they ran, I don't know if they still run, they ran at least 3 lines that merge into Asheville, previously owned by Norfolk Southern. Their operations began in about 2014. Anywho, this... let's see. This is the old Biltmore station right here. It's interesting that they've actually got that. That's still here. There's Asheville on there. I think now in modernity, it's this is a restaurant now, of course. But the model looks okay. The way they've got these little peaked vents or windows in some areas, that looks fairly legit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like one-to-one, but as far as the shape and the style of architecture, you know, it looks pretty legit, I reckon. Take a look around here, see what else I can see. Alrighty, guys. So let's start heading out of Asheville down towards Saluda. First, the main large town we're going to go through is Hendersonville. That's kind of where the line ends in modern day as far as any kind of activity. I don't think anything really goes beyond Hendersonville. Got another level crossing. I think it's a yard limit sign here. What's this little post? Yeah, there we go. I don't think those are terribly new. Now this is a neat little thing. I'm glad they did add this. Kind of like brand new assets that are specific to the area. Some things that they absolutely cannot not add, or people would notice, so to speak. Kind of like a lot of the stuff on the Hanover sub at Gettysburg, so on and so forth, and the that little friggin' rail museum down in Hagerstown, I think. Anyway, I'm getting off track here. So these signs, of course, the crew of these trains saw on the way out of town, and they most definitely were there. They're real. They look pretty good. They are legit. So it says, "Have a safe trip on the safest Carolina Division territory, the AS." I'm sorry, the ANS. I know, it looks like it says the ass. They should have made the N symbol a little bit smaller. And the reason it said that is because it was, it didn't see a ton of traffic, but it was the safest area in this Carolina division. Because they had to be. I mean, the guys that ran trains over Saluda had to be, thoroughly vetted and qualified to be able to do so. Because it was kind of a big deal. It could be sketchy. Got another level crossing board there, I think. The right of way through here looks pretty good. It's built up a little bit. It's nice and smooth, and it's nice and treed all around. I'd say so far the track itself and the line side foliage looks pretty darn good from what I've seen so far. And then you got the Krusty the Clown treetops. Jesus, ever loving. Anyway, so we're headed easterly to South Carolina now. A couple little towns, mainly, outlier. What's the word I'm looking for? Like neighborhoods, burbs of Asheville. We've got I think that's one of the mile markers there. So that is unique and new to the route, it would appear. We're not going to go the whole way like this down to Saluda because we got a lot of stuff to look at today. So we're going to start jumping around here in a little bit once we kind of get out of the greater Asheville area. This might be Interstate 26, which is the interstate that runs through I believe it's a double lane massive highway. It's really the only big road that gets you in and out of western North Carolina at any kind of speed. Got another crossing here. Got a little bungalow. Crossings look okay. I mean, some of it's not very, blended super well. I don't know. It is what it is. It's a crossing. Not the end of the world. The built-up rail bed looks pretty good through here. Looks pretty legit. I'm digging it. Got another little country road. That might... No. I was thinking that might be the Blue Ridge Parkway. So the Blue Ridge Parkway, I'm sure a lot of you know what that is as well, is a road that goes between, I want to say West Virginia and Georgia. And it is one of the most beautiful drives you will ever take in your life east of the Mississippi. It's just absolutely gorgeous. You're on the rim or the ridge line of these mountains the whole way. Some of the most stunning vistas. It is insane how pretty it is. I think this might be it right here. This might be the, well, maybe not, because there's like a two-way street looking there. Decent looking cut through here. The rocks, again, that's very old stuff. Doesn't look the best. Whatever. Moving right along. what's that? Hold on. More to boards. Another dwarf for the siding. And we'll cut on through. So there's supposed to be, I can't say for certain yet, there's supposed to be quite a bit of variety for this area. So you're in Asheville, Buena Vista right here, got a little sign there. You're in Asheville, which is kind of in this big valley in the mountains, and then you start running through here and you will start coming across mountain grades to a degree. Lots of curves, twists, and turns. You're pretty high up elevation wise, and then you'll go down Saluda and go through, and then you end up in South Carolina, which quickly turns into rolling hills and just a assload of farmland. So it should be quite the contrast. We will see if that is, of course, the case here, though. But so far, as I kind of expected, the route does look pretty good. It's just these trees, man. These freaking trees. I'm gonna lose my shit here in a minute. Oh, and these are my favorite too. Those look great. Let's look. Here we go. That's a good one right there. Yeah, buddy. Anywho, all right, leaving the trees alone. Okay, this might be the Blue Ridge Parkway because there's really nothing on it. Yeah, that's got to be the Blue Ridge Parkway. There are the odd, like, hotel and things like that, gas stations, little restaurants. But that's the Blue Ridge Parkway. It kind of runs through this area, which is very flat, but once it gets north of Asheville, it kind of, you're literally driving on top of a mountain. And then south of Asheville, it goes on that ridge line over there, which is Pisgah. Mount Pisgah is over that direction, which is one of the highest mountains in the area. So anyway, that's the Blue Ridge Parkway. So here's what I was talking about with some of the vehicles not matching the period. They said 80s to 90s. This shit ain't 80s to 90s. You got like a friggin' 1950s Bel Air and then this old bus. I mean, it just doesn't match. So it's kind of funny with some of that stuff. The speed these vehicles are going as well, that would lead me to believe that that is indeed the Great Blue Ridge Parkway. So we're heading on down. A little bit further down this way is actually that little short line I was talking about, the Blue Ridge Southern. They've got a little siding or a team track down here and an office. It's kind of like their southern end to operations down here. It's obviously not going to be in this. But if you wanted to do, say you got a Blue Ridge Southern skin and you wanted to run some different kind of stuff, like more modern, if that's down here, you could definitely do some stuff. Got another cross in there. Starting to very much get out of Asheville. Got a little industry. A lot of industries kind of came and went over the years. A lot of them are closed or just flat out not rail served anymore. Zoom on down here. Of course, it's the South, so you've got your numerous churches and church steeples. So here it is. This siding right here, if I'm not mistaken, is where that Blue Ridge Southern office is in real life. Really real. What else is over here? If I'm thinking what this is, and I think I do know what it is just by that turnout, is the old Skyland power plant. Damn show is. All right. So we'll get over here. This is no longer here either. In modernity, this little stub kind of pulls off and then it stops right there. And now it's like a little substation, power substation. But this ran out to the what was called the Skyland power plant, which is now Duke Energy. And it was, a very large power plant. Still is. But it was brought more into modern times, and I think it still does run on some coal, but it's mainly propane and propane accessories and so on and so forth. But it basically stops nowadays kind of right where this little substation is there. But it's a neat little area because you cross some water here, because they got one of their big cooling ponds for the power station. But it was a coal-powered turbine plant. Started operations back in the 60s. And it was long served, of course, by the Southern Railway in Norfolk Southern. And it's slowly being converted into natural gas. So it does kind of have this little dike that comes out into the water here and in the bridge. This looks all right. That looks all right. I'm glad they did some stuff on the bank there with foliage and rocks. That looks Natural. That looks good. That looks nice. Got a little dock over there. I noticed the very end, like that looks okay. And then you get on this side, and it's just like, derp. Derp. That doesn't look good. We'll keep on rolling this way. And there it is. That's Duke Energy's power plant, or as it was known, Skyland. Here's some of their, I don't think these are natural ponds. I think it's, you know, they draw some of the cooling power out of these. But here's another dike that splits the two. And then you've got your intake and little yard over there. So this is the big old power plant. Looks pretty good. Looks fairly organic. It, you know, nothing really stands out too much, like it's too clean or anything like that. It looks okay. Zoom around here. Just got mountains and mountains of coal, black diamonds. Got the steam raising from the cooling tower deals. And then here's the yard over here where a little switcher would come in here and switch around. Got some darker spots where some coal would have been spilt out and things of that nature. So that looks all right. That's cool. That is cool. Again, like I said, this isn't served now. You know, no more trains come through here. It's strictly truck, tractor trailer. But it's kind of cool. It adds to something that you can do on this route, and was a very major part of this area. You know, with the railroad back in the day. So we'll get back on the line here. Yeah, that, I know I keep talking about the Blue Ridge Southern office. The Blue Ridge Southern office is definitely before, that power plant back there. And that one first lake, by the way, where the boats were on, that's Lake Julian. That's one of the largest lakes in the area. Got an old bridge here. Just trying to look at that. You know, it doesn't look very great. Yeah, I mean, it's okay. It looks all right. Yeah, I mean, visually, scenery-wise, and you know, that's what I put all my stock into with this route. If I'm completely honest, is the route. You know, that's what I'm in it for. I know the stock wasn't going to be great. Would it be awesome to have some really good new stock with a decent route? Hell, freaking yeah, it would. But sadly, I don't really think that's going to happen. I'm pretty sure these are the mile markers. Mile posts. Another bridge. Yeah, it looks all right. True here. Down here, we're going to have the Cane Creek Industrial Spur, as it was aptly named because, you guessed it, there was a creek called the Cane Creek that it runs beside. Got an old station here, freight house. This is Addon. Addon had a little sign back there. Very nice. Yeah, right down here should be the little spur. I mean, this is, you know, I know this area fairly well, and this is looking pretty legit. So it's one of those times where you can see something in, you know, in train sim or the likes that you kind of know, and then you see things, and you're like, yeah, okay. It's always fun doing stuff like that. Nice little use of that sticking out of the concrete piling there for the bridge, for the telegraph poles, power poles. That's all right. On zooming down. Yeah, Cane Creek Spur should be right down here in just a hair. There it be. Yeah, so this is the Cane Creek Spur. It's industrial park. There's still a lot of stuff back here to this very day that I believe are still rail served. If they are not presently, they were very recently. There's quite a few things you can do back here. We'll pop the map up and you can take a look at that. A lot of these, again, I don't know if they're still here or going to still be here. This is just outside the town of Fletcher, so it's got all these things named like plastics, logistics, blah, blah, blah. I'm trying to think there. I think there were a couple of older businesses back here. I tell you what, man, this looks like this part of North Carolina, looking at these hills, these little mounds, little baby mountains. The big mountains are back yonder. Little baby mountains are over here. But this goes back quite a way, and again, it looks pretty decent. This is the aptly named Cane Creek itself. I'm liking the vegetation all down in there. Okay, very good. I mean, that water, God almighty, God bless its heart. That just looks, oh, that's awful. That's awful. Yeah, lots of industries back here. They look fairly modern. Like I said, I think some of these are still rail served to this day. It's quite a lot of stuff going on back here. Let's go back to the main line, and I'll save you the zooming. Alrighty, we are back on the main line, facing south or east southeast, more appropriately. It's a very large loading dock here. I think now this is a concrete plant. Jeez, yeah, that's got to be it. There's a couple old spurs that jump off like that off of the main line. Down here, there should be the very large Kimberly plant. Let's see. Oh, is that new? Oop. I don't recall seeing this before. In fact, I don't even know what the hell that is. I think we're in Fletcher. The town of Fletcher is probably the courthouse or something. You got me there. Let's see. Yeah, this is Fletcher. So this is just south. Fletcher's kind of like right in between Asheville and Hendersonville. Which, by the way, that's one of those things. Some people say Asheville. Some people say Asheville. Kind of like Louisville in Louisville. But it's weird because I'll say Asheville and then I'll say Hendersonville. Because it just sounds weird to say Hendersonville. Anyway, ridiculous pointlessness aside. Big old long kind of flat stretch running here. That's something else I'd like to point out. While it may seem flat through here, and some of it is very hog backish or saw-toothed. So train handling will, well, with the stock that comes with the route, I was going to say will be paramount, but you can kind of see what it does down there. And it pretty much does this for the entirety of the route. There's never really a true flat spot on this entire route. We'll zoom on down. This might be the Kimberly place I was talking about. Better yet, no, this is a cement plant. Yeah, this is a cement plant. I think that's been here for quite a while. Still is there to this day. But I thought they had a runaround track where they load and offload. You know, like I said, it's supposed to be in the 80s, 90s, whatever. So I think further down is the Kimberly plant. I don't know what the hell this little spur is. Let me see something here. Yeah, bricked in concrete. Bam, bam. Wham, bam. So this is like a little industrial spur. Huh. I don't know if that's there today. Little extra things to do on the route, of course. Keep on zooming. Yeah, I'm liking the rail bed. It looks pretty organic. The you know, the right of way of the route. That looks all right. I mean, it is pretty high up. A lot of these, when you get, you know, you get them winter storms and everything, and spring storms, and you get a ton of rain and flooding, it does crazy things up here. So, you know, a lot of it's pretty high up like that. Keep on zooming. Should be getting pretty close to Hendersonville. Jump up under that bridge. We'll fly over that one. It's like we got another concrete plant here. I don't know if that's here anymore. I don't know this area, you know, between Asheville and the Fletcher area too well. I mean, you could probably just look on Google Maps or something to see if that's there. What is this? Is that's not a little industrial spur. There's a line down here that goes over to Canton, which is a another big there's like a big plant over in Canton that one of the daily trains, the wood chip trains, I think, that were kind of, I won't say famous. They came through here, went over to Canton. Big, it's like a big paper mill over there. It's not there anymore. They tore it all down. That line should be farther south there. But this field looks pretty good. You know, it is in the mountain, but, you know, the people that live down here and have lived down here for centuries take advantage of these flat, open valley parts. You know, and there's a lot of fields, a lot of farms, horse pastures, so on and so forth. So that looks nice. This little shot right there, man, that looks good. That looks pretty darn good. Pleasantly surprised with the scenery, Safer. Another little numerous unnamed creeks that flow through here and rivers. I only really know the big ones. We got another little thingamabob. This building has got like some weird texturing going on with it. Like there's no... It looks like it's not finished or something, you know, as far as like an asset. Yeah, anyway, that might be... Let me look at the map again. Naples Concrete, Farm Supplies. There we go. Home Foods. Was Hilgert. Hendersonville Paper Products. There it is. Okay, so it is here. Very cool. So down here is the modern day, right now, as of speaking, unless they've done something on Wall Street I do not yet know about, is Kimberly Clark, the very large paper company. They make, you know, hygiene products, all kinds of stuff. They do get some trains still presently. You'll see some hops parked up in this area. It's a pretty damn good sized plant. It's one of those areas that's a very major employer of this general vicinity. Here it is. Yeah, it looks good. Digging it. Okay. Hot dog. I mean, they got them tracks right and everything. The way the buildings look for the most part, that's pretty spot on. It may not be 100%, but that's pretty damn close, as far as I can tell. Keep on zooming down. I know I said I wouldn't do this, but we're doing it anyway. I'm going to try and stop. We get down this little line in Hendersonville that I'll start kind of jumping around. Save you guys some time from all the zooming. Zooming. Double track, as you can still see, it is still up and down. Very sawtoofish. That's got to be Hendersonville right up there. Cool little town. I love Hendersonville. Last time we were up in the mountains up here, we actually stayed right in Flat Rock, or north of Flat Rock, in the Green River Game Preserve, which is just outside of Hendersonville here. Came here many times to their Chick-fil-A. Yeah. They got a damn good Chick-fil-A in Hendersonville. So here it is, Hendersonville, another good-sized town. It's probably the second largest town outside of Asheville, in western North Carolina. But this is about 20 miles south of Asheville, so where we started. And again, this area settled by the Cherokee natives. Like, you know, a lot of this area was all indigenous Cherokee lands. So railroad tracks eventually arrived here in about 1879, I think. Of course, that was the Southern Railway, and the Southern Railway, actually built, or had this depot built in the area in the early 1900s. But Hendersonville was kind of, you know, best known for the Carolina Special, as it was named, the passenger train that went from Cincinnati, Ohio to Charleston, South Kakalaki. And, God, that train ran for like 50 years, several decades, several dozens of years. I think it finally stopped in about the late 60s or early 70s. And at one point, this area, this station here, saw 6 trains a day. So 3 going, 3 coming, which is, you know, quite a lot, especially for this area. Yeah, I think the depot is also used for goods trains to and from Saluda, of course, and Lake Toxaway, which is kind of a big... Lake Toxaway is like a resort area that people would come to back in the old days to get away out of the low country in the hotter months, because that's one of the neat things about this area. It's like even in the depths, in the pit of summer hell, like where I live currently, when it doesn't even get under 80 degrees at night, it's always so much cooler up here during the summer. Big time. But this depot, I think, was all but dead by I want to say the 1970s, when that Carolina Special, the passenger train, stopped coming through here, and the Acosta plant, that's the name of the plant I was thinking of, that's out in Canton, that shut down. And I kept saying Canton. It was actually in Brevard, a little town area called Brevard. It closed in 2002, and it housed a huge paper mill built back in like the 1930s. So if you've seen a lot of pictures, videos, whatever, of trains coming up Saluda that had the pulp or the chip cars, the big wood chip, that's where they would go. 9 times out of 10 was that plant over in Brevard. But this is the old station. It's still there. This station's still here. I think they have a caboose here as well. In modernity, I want to say they do. Yeah, they got a Southern caboose. It sits like over here, I think. Modern day. But the station looks legit. They did okay on these stations. I like these custom stations, like the coloring and everything, and the little steeple, and all that looks pretty nice. That's still there. It's like an event center, I think. They got a museum in there. All that good stuff. That's very nice. I'm happy to see that. Happy, happy, happy. So the old line down to Acosta, and that plant I was talking about over in Brevard, is just south of Hendersonville here. See if we can find it. Yeah, it's got to be it right there. Yeah, we'll see how far that goes. Better yet, let's look at the map and see what it says here. Let's go down. Look at there. It says Brevard. They got that right. I wonder why they didn't put that portal up north over to the old Fort Loops and over to Salisbury. So yeah, this is it. This went, you know, it's kind of funny because they're wood chip gons with this route, right? That came as like a major part of it, because it was a lot of the industry that came up and down the Saluda Grade, the Asheville Spartanburg line, and you can't get over to Brevard at that place. I mean, sure, there's a lot of other places, you know. I'm assuming they're going to have you in the scenarios taking the stuff to the yards, you know, to and fro and all that good stuff, but this goes over to Brevard. Brevard's one of those nice little towns up in the mountains. There are many of them, kind of stuck back in time, and it's Brevard's kind of right on the edge of the mountains, whereas this area is more in a just kind of like a wide open valley, if you will, in most parts. But Brevard is more to the west, kind of butted up closer to the mountain itself. Anywho, all right, let's start heading south. I'll save you guys some zooming trouble and blabbering, and we'll stop and pick out little points of interest here and there. We're several miles south of Hendersonville now, continuing on, of course, east to Spartanburg to go through Saluda. And this is kind of where I'll go ahead and pop the map up in here and show you guys if you're interested. This is where it kind of gets a little twisty. So, you know, you're kind of up in a high valley, if you will. And the way this works is there's this huge escarpment on the border of South Carolina and North Carolina. It's crazy. An example, some of you may know, there's this area called Caesar's Head State Park where you can see like all the way into South Carolina, because it's just boom. It's like looking over the side of a dam. Like it's just this huge, you know, mountain face and then flat land. It's kind of wild when you think about it, because it doesn't, you know, there's no gradual hill, so to speak. So that's kind of what starts going on here. Anyway, we'll start zooming through here. Gets a little twisty. You can tell the grade's going down a hair. It looks like the tracks were super elevated. I can tell they're kind of leaned a little bit for some slight railworks terminology. It cuts around the side of a couple little mountains here. Little twisty. Train will be stretching out and compressing here and there. Extra drag. And it still looks pretty damn good. That kind of looks assy. But, you know, there are some parts through here which are just like bald, so to speak. In North Carolina terminology, that's called a knob. Kind of like me, I'm a bit of a knob. Yeah, we're still going down. Lake Summit should be right down Chow. Still zooming down pretty good. Another mile marker, 26. We're getting there. Cuts back that way. Geez, you don't know which way you're facing here. Zooming back and forth. This looks pretty dang legit, though. I'm kind of surprised. Like, I had a feeling it would look okay, but it's I mean, if you set it to autumn, I know it's just going to look absolutely horrid. But summertime, it looks okay. Zooming around. There it is. I see the lake. Lake Summit, this little village here. So this is not actually a lake. I mean, it is, but it wasn't. This is one of those things where they dammed up a river. That's actually the Green River on the other side of this dam here, and that's the lake. That's looking, well, the sun would determine that's west. But so this is like south here. A lot of nice vacation homes on this area, so on and so forth. There's a bridge up here that the trains would cross. Got the bank of the lake itself. There it is. There's the old bridge. This is one of the areas where especially like the Belmont coal train, some of the train would end up down here. They'd stop to check the retainers and, you know, look over stuff and all that. I remember seeing pictures of the trains chilling on that little bridge there. And this is the dam right here. Welcome to the dam tour. Over there is your dam bait shop. So anyway, that's dam. This is the Green River that goes up that way to the north. Very pretty area. It's I think that's actually used by Duke Energy as well. The same power plant is back near Asheville. That's what that's all about. It was dammed for you know, a lot of dams, obviously hydroelectric purposes. Dolphins, yes, hydroelectric dolphins. Built on the Green River. I think that was built in. It was built a long time ago, like 1920 or something like that. Quite a while ago. So we're getting down in the hollers or hollows or valleys, a lot closer to the South Carolina line. It twists back and forth a couple times, and we're going to be coming up on Saluda in quick fashion here. Another speed board. Got a little farm working, some fields, very nice. This is a gorgeous area in real life. This little town is epic. They got some damn good little restaurants, some barbecue. Woo! I love this area. Just messing with this is just, you know, geeking me out for going back up here soon, which I absolutely cannot wait to get back out of Florida and get into some, what, you know, most people get to experience, which is normal temperatures and not shy of hell temperatures. All right, here's the siding leading into Saluda. There's the highway or the road that it's over on the right there. It's going to cross across the tracks here downtown eventually and head over to the left. One of the first crossings. You can see we're kind of in like a gully or like a gap here, if you will. Seeing lots of purple trees and Krusty the Clown trees everywhere. Really like that. All right, so here we go. This is the Saluda Depot. And this is kind of funny because this is not here anymore. They actually moved it. They were going to tear it down, but a lot of people got together and they were like, hell no, and they saved it. They actually got it moved down into town there, right under that bridge. But again, the timing, you know, kind of funkified when that happened. I'm going to have to dig in the old crusty brain locker here because I'm not sure if the time would fit with that. Anyway, there's the Saluda sign. And so we'll zoom out and just chat on it here in a minute. Saluda, of course, named for rough Cherokee Native translation, because that's what a lot of places did here, you know, in America and a lot of other places in the whole world, actually, were, you know, settler rough translations of native people's tongue. So Saluda was roughly translated from Saluda or something like that. I think I got it somewhat right, which in Cherokee meant green corn place. So I vote we should do a petition for High Iron to change this to green corn place grade. Anyway, that's what it means. I don't know why they named it that. I guess some corn that was green grew here. Not totally sure, but it was later settled by another slightly interesting story about the area. So it was later settled by a lot of the Scotch and Irish descendants fleeing the widely known Whiskey Rebellion in Pennsylvania circa about 1790 something. So a lot of them kind of settled this area, which is kind of neat. One of the things I'm noticing, though, is line side stuff looks okay, but then you've got all this stuff back here, which just does not have any grasses or vegetation on it. It's just very bare. It doesn't look that great. It's got that bright green kind of ground texture. And it kind of stinks to see stuff like that when stuff right by the line side looks pretty good. So, anyway, the completion of the Southern Railway came through here and basically saw the area expand in the late 1800s. You know, of course, building the famed grade that drops like 600 feet to the mile. And the grade itself, Saluda Grade, this crazy grade that the route's all about and I keep talking about, was actually built by convicts. And it's amazing. You know, not only is that interesting, but it, you know, that it lasted so long and did so well and was used quite a bit. So old school convict labor had this place built. So at its peak, Saluda had like 8 passenger trains a day, per day. That was a lot, especially back then when there was more of that stuff. And of course, you know, they were known back in the day for their infamous runaways because of the grade itself. Here's a Central of Georgia caboose sitting over here to the side. Looks cool. Go ahead and run on up to the town here. So that back there was the old Saluda Depot, basically, which was removed. They moved it. Yeah. Now it just hit me. They moved it in 1983. Okay. So this is supposed to be, it says 80s to 90s. Like I said, that's a broad gap era-wise. They moved that in 1983. I'm pretty damn sure it was 1983. So that wouldn't have been there now, as with a couple other things. So again, that's why they kind of went with a broad time gap. Like, hey, it could be either way, whatevs. Anyway, this is the town of Saluda itself. That depot we were just looking at was actually moved right here, where this building now sits, right on the corner. There's like an old gas station, filling station here in real life, and then the depot went right here, right next to it. This is the town itself. There's actually a few of these little towns in this area that are just so quaint and cute and gorgeous and neat, historically and otherwise, because they're, you know, they sit on the top of these mountains, so to speak, and they're right next to the railroad tracks. I mean, the railroad built these friggin' towns like they did a lot of towns in the U.S. and, you know, abroad even. But it's just, you know, it's interesting that the main line just goes right by. You could literally sit out here back in the day and, you know, watch these trains battling the grade, going back and forth. Here's the actual sign. That is legit. They got that correct. Saluda Grade, the steepest standard gauge mainline railway grade in the U.S. Opened 1878, 3 miles long, crests here, and that it does. They even got the slant on it right. I was looking at this thing face to face, or face to sign in real life, just this past March. And it's this area up here is still kind of clean, but man, either which way you go out of here, it is just not clean at all. Excuse me. Over here, there's now a park, modern day, and a lot of parking for the town itself goes on over here. little crossing. A lot of houses back in there and up on this hillside as well. But the little town looks good. There's a little restaurant here in real life called the Purple Onion, I think, which is just freaking delicious. A lot of little good restaurants. Good little coffee shop back off this street too as well. Up there and to the right, if I remember correctly. But it's a neat area. Not only that, like if you wanted to come hang out down here in modernity, in modern time, there's actually a kind of like an adventure sports shop right here now. And behind it is a little Airbnb caboose, an old Southern Railway caboose that you can spend the night in or rent or whatever, which is kind of neat because of where it's at. You're not going to see any trains, but I digress. When you're over here, so there's kind of like a built-up concrete wall here now, but when you're over here standing, you can see, I mean, just look at that. You can see straight down that son of a bitch. It literally drops. It's that steep that it just looks... You gotta think, man, these heavy-ass trains going up and down that. That's just crazy to think about. But this is the town of Saluda. Some people call it Saluda Mountain. I am 99.9% sure that Saluda is not an actual mountain. It's just the namesake of the town or the township. But, you know, there's no mountain per se that is Saluda. But they got this area looking, you know, pretty legit, you know, the town and all that good stuff. So let's start looking around this specific area. All right, so we're here, guys. Again, this is obviously Saluda, the namesake of the route, even though there's so much more mileage between here and there, and this is just in the middle, you know. But this is one of the best known pieces of railroading in the Southeast, hands down. You know, probably even countrywide, you know, United States. But anyway, so what this is all about, and the reason this is here, is this is the original line to and eventually through Saluda, this town, which was built in the 1870s to connect Spartanburg, South Carolina, which is the direction we are currently looking, and Asheville, North Carolina, which is behind us, via the Blue Ridge Mountains. Now, when it got built, it was called the Spartanburg and Asheville line. And then hard times came, and then it was bought, and the name was changed to the Asheville and Spartanburg line. So they just changed the names basically to, you know, I want my town's name first kind of thing. And, you know, changed hands a couple of times. But it was built, you know, to get goods in and out of the area and to get people up out of the lower Carolina coastal plain, you know, to escape. Because back then they didn't have air conditioners and all that good stuff, so... But again, it's the steepest standard gauge railroad main line in the U.S. and remained in operation until 2001. So where it kind of started getting its fame was a victim of a runaway train, you know, back in the day, very early 1900s, probably turn of the century. A fella was seriously injured, spinal injury, and he was laying there in his hospital bed apparently, and he came up with the idea of runaway tracks. So he thought, you know, gravity's, you know, pulling the trains down. Let's try and get gravity to work in our favor. And so these things called runaway ramps became. So a lot of you guys, I'm sure you know and have seen driving around this, you know, this country of ours and various other countries, you'll see trucking runaway ramps. I mean, hell, you'll see them in Pennsylvania, Georgia, North Carolina, Tennessee, so on and so forth. If a truck's air brakes die, you know, eat shit, whatever, they can run up the ramp and it'll basically slow them down. That's where those came from. A lot of people, I think, don't understand is this very place right here, Saluda. So the guy that had the big brain light bulb idea talked it over with the bosses, and they eventually got 2 of these runaway tracks built. Only one remains to this day, but it's an interesting thing nonetheless because it just made operation a bit more safe. So we'll start heading down the grade here. This town, nay, more precise, basically this crossing is the summit of the grade. So it's downhill that way. Excuse me, sir. We get ran over. And it's downhill that way.
Less so that way. So trains would stop here, do their checks, set the retainers on the rolling stock or the the rail car, so on and so forth, and they'd start conquering the mountain, so to speak. So we'll start going down. I mean, you can look just straight ahead how it just disappears. It's crazy how it drops. Here you have your stop boards. So those are legit, very nice. So we'll start going down the hill here. It's literally like a freaking roller coaster. It's crazy. It bends back and forth. And the reason this was built, and some people may think, well, why the hell is this built? This is crazy. So the only other thing that they could have done to not make a massive, super 100-mile long rail line just to get to and from A to B was to go up through the Green River area, which is just to the north. But those lands have a lot of water running through them. The land is a bit more porous, and it just, apparently to the guys that engineered this, it just would not have been as good of an idea to build the railroad up that way rather than it would down here. We got another stop board here, I believe. Stop board number 2. This is definitely for lighter trains. So your heavier trains would have stopped at stop board number 1. Your lighter trains would have stopped at stop board number 2 here. So it's looking so far so good. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out where the first runaway ramp is. It's a little zigzaggy parts. This is the Saluda siding. That's the runaway ramp. Oh, they actually got it in there. How about that? Okay, so they actually have it named in there. Okay, that's interesting. So yeah, they built 2 runaway ramps. This was obviously the first one, and the other one was further down. There's actually a little creek down in here, or a river. All right, did they leave a little clearing out for it and all that? I am curious. What the hell? That's kind of interesting. You imagine if they put a bunch of dirt like on a little road tunnel like that? That's funky. What the heck? It should be back here. Did they? Am I losing my mind? Let's see. It's a little S. I'm surprised they didn't leave. I mean, you can't really see anything today, and it's been closed since, I want to say the 80s. They closed the first one in the 80s. But yeah, you can't really see anything at all. Not even like the former bed. That is interesado. This right here is what they call sand cut. I think they have it named as well. There it is. And interesting little fact about this area. For starters, it's called sand cut because it's freaking sand and not rock. I don't know why they put rock here. I guess they didn't have a good enough kind of sand. It's just like a very kind of washout looking prone area. It's most definitely not rock. I'm sure there's some rock, but it's mainly sand. And also back in the day in the 1800s, the locomotive crews or the train crews, if they had to jump anywhere, like if they knew their shit was about to get split, this was probably the safest place to do it. So if they had to jump, it would have been in sand cut. Curves back around. Cha. Also the steepest part of the grade right back through there. Mile marker, there's the creek down in there. This looks okay through here. End timing section. Wait, hold on a minute. I'm sorry, what? You mean start? Shouldn't it be start? All right, so here it is. I was just here back in March as well, and they got this right. I mean, it looks just like this for the most part. So runaway track number 2 is down here. And this little body of water, by the way, this is the Pacolet River, or Pacolet, whatever locals may call it. But that actually runs yonder, kind of easterly. And then there's actually the Pacolet in South Carolina as well, that I think this very railroad will cross over further down. Some of the things I'm noticing, though, right down here, it does look okay in some areas, but then you see that open mountain face, this crap. And yeah, you've got those procedural grasses or whatever, but you don't see that shit until you get right up on it. Otherwise, you see that, and that looks terrible. This little bridge next to the river, this looks pretty good. If you go this way in real life, there's actually a waterfall back up in there that they make you pay to go see. So we didn't see it last time because I ain't about to go pay to see a freaking waterfall. And this right here, I'm sure a lot of you may know, this is Mr. Melvin Warren's office. So this was the switch house, and it did exactly what it was named to do. He would be in control of the switch right there, because this was runaway track number 2, right? So if trains were out of control, and I mean, God almighty, you can see how steep that is looking up that way. Some of the craziest footage I've seen of trains going up that are just, it's crazy. So this is 100% always set to the runaway track, which is to the right. You can see right now, even in this free roam looking around, that it most very much is not set to the right. Apparently, the developers of this route said that they were not able to do that for whatever reason. A lot of people retorted and said there's things you can do in scenarios to make it work. So we'll see what becomes of it. I don't know. Again, I don't know why they called it Pro, just because it's got a really steep grade. But anyway, that should always be set to the right. And then if the train comes across and ends the timing section back up there, then this will set itself back to the main line off to the left. So Melrose is kind of an interesting place. It's not a town. It never was a town. It was a station stop back in the 1800s with a depot. And even very recently, the track layout looked nothing like this. But it was just, part of the grade, because they would have like manned helpers here, so on and so forth, next to runaway track number 2 over there. Track number 2, which of course does not, you can't really see it doing much there. That was, that runaway track number 2 was the last one that remained after they closed the first one. It was like, it had an 11% grade, I believe, someday thereabouts, and it was about 2,000 feet long. I don't know too much about runaway track number 1, but it's, halfway between here and the summit, pretty much. But these were the first safety tracks. This led to the truck safety tracks, thanks to the Saluda and the Southern Railway. It's kind of a legacy of theirs, if you will, which is kind of cool. But yeah. So this area had a road foreman. You can kind of think of it like a harbor pilot. He was the captain of this area, and very heavy trains that went down it. If it was a priority train and it was very heavy, the road foreman of engines had to be on it. He controlled this section. He was the most vetted and qualified to do so. And there were a lot of different things that went on with this grade. I know I'm kind of mulling over it slightly, but I know for a fact a lot of this stuff is not included in this route, sadly. So the rolling stock, for example, on these heavy-ass coal trains that would go down the grade, they would set the retainers on like the first half of the train on the rail cars closest to the engines. You can't do that in railworks. So I think you got to use the handbrakes, if you will, which is kind of weird. Also, the engines had a special key. So when you inserted it, when you were here, if the brakes for whatever reason cut out, you lost air, the dynamics would remain in place. A lot of times, if you lose air, you'll lose the dynamics, so on and so forth. So this had a special key, that you would put in place in the event that happened. The dynamics would remain in place because you very much did not want to, have a runaway here. But yeah, these guys were 100% required on pretty much every coal train earlier on. But they were the bread and butter for Saluda, these coal trains, and the Saluda line itself. There was also the trains called the Hayne Turn, which Hayne is in South Carolina, which is down here. So that's Hayne. That's in Spartanburg, South Carolina. So the Hayne Turn would often either leave, Asheville and go down to Hayne, pick stuff up, and then drop stuff along the way, and then go back up to Asheville. And they would have to, of course, go up the grade, which is kind of smack dab in the middle of the route. So between the coal trains and the Hayne Turn, or that local, that's pretty much all that ran on this line. It was never super busy, especially in its, last days, so to speak. But it would, it'd take empties down and bring back chip hoppers, all kinds of stuff for the paper mill in Canton and various other places. As well, some trains would come down from the Midwest and take this route. Some trains, not a lot, and they would go to Charleston because Charleston is a fairly large shipping port for machinery and things like that. So they'd come down as well, but it wasn't ever really super busy, this area. So we're at the south end of the grade, Melrose, looking back north, or west, actually, not north. But a lot of steam trains, lost their cojones going over this pass. Quite a few accidents. Things, of course, got safer with dieselization. Diesel engines, they were just easier to control, easier to put the power down. So on and so forth. But I think the first diesel over this grade was in 1949, and it just, they handled so much better than steam locomotives that it led to the removal of safety track, or runaway track number 1. So then runaway track number 2 remained. But like I said, there was a lot of runaways, a lot of crashes, a lot of injuries, quite a few deaths. 12, 13, 14 fatalities, maybe, something like that. But, equipment became safer to operate, and they just ripped up that first track. They felt like they didn't need it anymore or have to take care of it. And then the second one, so this is the second runaway, the one that remains, that was set to an electronic timer. So if trains were coming down the grade straight directly smack dab in front of us, and they were over 8 miles an hour, that safety track would stay locked in, and they would come over here. If you were just a little bit over and you weren't out of control, you just end up going down this thing. You'd have to back the damn thing up and come back down all over again. Otherwise, if it were under 8 mile an hour, you would, of course, go over here. But this area is kind of interesting. So this is Melrose. It was a station stop in the 1800s. It's literally nothing. There's nothing here. There's houses all up and down this road over here. There's houses up in that hollow there. There's some houses up that road there, but it was not a town. They did have a depot here. They had a coaling tower, water tower. Like I said, helper engines. There was a little depot here. It was actually right here where we're looking. And then, of course, a couple of tracks, a stub over there, so on and so forth for helper engines. Now, even in modernity in the 80s, 90s, so on and so forth, they would still have to double and triple trains coming up the grade. So if they're coming from South Carolina, they cut the train in half, take the stuff up the grade up to Saluda, and then they come back down, light engine, and get the rest of the train and do it all over again. And a little interesting tidbit about runaway track number 2, of course, the bit of track on the right there. The very last time I think that was used was in like 1895. I said that totally backwards. 1895. 1985. Bird brain moment. When an SD-led coal train just wasn't able to match the speed for whatever reason, might have gone over a mile or two over. Therefore, it remained locked in, and it sent the train up to the runaway ramp, and they had to back down and and do it all over again. It's and that was the last time that that was ever used, if I'm not mistaken, I think, which was a pretty interesting fact. 1985. So we have left Melrose. We're down the track a mile or two, and we are basically looking into South Carolina. And you can see how the mountains just kind of stop, and it's a lot more flat. While South Carolina and the Piedmont is not, it's a very pretty area as well. It's not inherently just flat. It's more rolling hillish. It just kind of, bam. There's no graduation into the elevation, which is what's interesting, and you can kind of see it from here pretty well. And in just a few more miles, we are in the town of Tryon, which looks pretty flat. It looks pretty normal. There's no mountains or crazy twists and turns or anything. And if we look back that way, you can see the magnificent Blue Ridge, how it just, dead ends right here. But anyway, this is the town of Tryon. It's just one of those little towns, railroad town, named for the governor in the 1700s in this area for kind of brokering a peace treaty with the settlers and the native tribe. And so they thought that was such a great feat that they ended up naming the town after him. By about 1877, Tryon was basically the end of the line westward to Asheville on the railroad before work continued. So this was it. It kind of got a boom because of that. But at its peak, Tryon saw, I think, 6 trains a day as well, probably passenger trains, again, because a lot of them were to leave the low country when it would get hot and nasty, and they'd want to get up here, with fresh, cooler air. And that was about 1885, 1880s. But it's another one of those towns, kind of like Saluda, that's right on the track. And it looks like it's kind of frozen in time, and it's just a cool little town. It's got a big wall here where the railroad is, and here's their depot. I think all of these little depots are custom. This is the Tryon depot. So the current depot, this thing was built in, I think, 1922, and was basically the third one built. So it was like the very last one built. Now it's a place, like a lot of these old depots, it's sad as hell, but it's a place for events now and things like that. But they kept it up. It's been restored. It's a neat little building. But this area was a big agriculture exporter until about the 50s, when, of course, the rail traffic started to decline. So this is the town of Tryon, and this is basically the border, right on the border between North Carolina and South Carolina is right in here. I think it's back that way a little bit. It might actually be that way, but it's kind of funky looking at it on a map. Anywho, let's keep on trucking. Here we have the town of Landrum. So we are now officially in South Carolina. North Carolina is back behind us, and just look how much flatter it is down here. And you can look that way and start seeing the Blue Ridge, as it's called. But this is a pretty area, another one of those older towns. There's a depot here as well. It's still here, if I'm not mistaken. I believe they have a coach. I think they have an old Pullman that they got a hold of. And it's set right here in modernity, or modern times. Which is kind of neat, but it was, I don't know if it was fully restored, but it looks pretty legit. I like the little depots that they got. It's a pretty good sized town, not, very large, but it looks pretty darn legit. Oh, you got the Smokies. This looks like a road you can speed down for sure. You got Smoky sitting there waiting on you. But right down here should be the Pacolet River. Not too far, which, as I mentioned earlier, is the same exact river, or part of the river that you passed up in Saluda that runs along the track there. Over off to the edge, there should be a sawmill, I think, which has been here for quite a while. It's still there to this day, and it indeed looks like a sawmill as far as I can tell. Let's see what it's named here. That's Melrose. Where am I at? God dog, I'm lost. That's Tryon. Landrum. Yep, so it's sawmill. So, okay, good deal. What's this next one? So that's the sawmill. Next town up is Campobello. We should be passing the dang river. Where's the river at? This is outside of Campobello up here. Another big arse factory. A lot more flat, wide open, very country. Nothing too urban around here till you get to Spartanburg, which is fairly urbanized, like Asheville. But they sure don't look like it on this route anyway. I mean, they've been pretty large towns since 50s, 60s. They haven't been built up vertically, so to speak, but they were always pretty large dang towns. Keep on zooming. It's still pretty flat, but it's just a nice countryside. It's just these kind of gentle rolling hills. Not super flat until you get further down. There's actually quite a bit of farmland and fields and all that good stuff this way, but it's just a pretty dang area. There's a big old field right there, a matter of fact. There it is. There's a Pacolet River. So this is part of this meets the North Pacolet River, which was back in Saluda or Melrose. Anywho. Now I turned around and looked. This is a cool looking shot. This is looking back towards the Blue Ridge, and you can see it just down there. But this is just on the other side of a little town called Campobello. And it's, like I was saying, it's a lot of farmland, a lot of agriculture, and you can definitely see it here. I like the fields. They look nice. Of course, it has that shitty thing going on with the level of detail. The closer and further you get, it just kind of pops up, which is horrible. I wish it was just all around. I don't think there's anything in the game that you can really do to fix that, but it's just a very nice looking area. So it's the reason I'm showing and talking about it is part of the contrast that I was speaking to earlier with going through Asheville. The Blue Ridge, Saluda, through the hollows, and then you get down into the Piedmont or Upper Piedmont. It's a lot of farmland. So there's, a bit of variety to the land. Next up, we have the town of Inman. Now, here is the old depot on the railroad. This is looking back west from whence and where we came. Pretty good sized town as well. It's kind of like a suburb of Spartanburg. Spartanburg is just behind us, not too far. But I don't know if that depot is here anymore. I don't know if it was saved and moved somewhere else. I don't think it's there. I could totally 100% be wrong, but we are marching onward and almost into Spartanburg. So marching our way to Spartanburg, there's actually going to be quite a few industries that are very much here to this day, even still. This one being, I think it's called Melicanlow and Company or something like that. And it's basically a giant chemical plant. And I think they still get rail cars. I'm not totally sure, but it looks like it hasn't really changed much from when they built this by. Man, them stacks do not look very good. That looks like it's missing a texture or something. Looks pretty bad. It'd be like gray or something. What in the hell? But it's a big place. You got your spur over here for the tanks. Another very large industry up there. It's kind of like a little rail industrial park. And then I think part of the same company are some of these back here. Probably some storage tanks. Could totally be wrong. Let's see. Oh, wait. No, this is another chemical place. I think this is Whitaker. I don't know. I might be getting mixed up here. Anyway, there's a ton of industry back here. A lot of it's been here for decades, and it's very much still here. We are just on the edge of Spartanburg. Scenery still looks okay for the most part, especially line side. That's not the best transition there between flat land and the rail bed. We'll keep on zooming. We are not too far. Got a couple more industries back in there. So there's going to be plenty to do. One of these is Michelin Tire Company, the very large tire company, which is still here to this day. It's one of those places that's a big employer of the area, Spartanburg, which is just kind of a little neat fact. Couple of concrete places. You got some cement or cement. I think this is that's one of the interstates right there. Jeez, I don't think it's one of the main ones. It's one of the ones you know, it's got like 3 numbers. I think. Yeah, it's definitely an interstate there, major highway. We'll keep on skizooching down. Another big plant over there. Got 2 tracks. And here it is, Spartanburg. Spartanburg's a pretty good sized town. It was basically formed in the 1700s, late 1700s, which was kind of like a deal that was made with the Cherokee natives. Again, yes, the Cherokee, all in this area, like I said. And it was named after like a local militia in the gosh, that was Revolutionary era, right? I think it was. Anyway, they made like a deal with the Cherokee, and they were the Spartan regiment, so they named it Spartanburg. You know, this place has got a ton of railroad history. I'm not going to get too deep into it. It had a moniker. It was known as like Hub City because, you know, you had the Southern or Asheville and Spartanburg that went that way. You had the you know, you had the Clinchfield that went up that way, and they all kind of come together down that way a little bit. And then you had the what was it, the X-Seaboard over here. So a lot of different railroads came into this area. It was a sprawling area. It was well known for textiles. It was like a textile mega center at the time, and just a lot of railroad stuff went on here. There's still an Amtrak station down there. We'll get down there in just a minute, but this is Haynes Shops over here. A lot of this, sadly, is no longer here. There's absolutely nothing here, or nothing but a fraction or a ghost of its former self. This area. So these tracks down here go on down to Asheville and Saluda that way, and then you come in this way, and this is the Haynes Shops. So like I mentioned, there's not much here today. A lot of this was torn up. This is the old Haynes Shops. It was a big part of the Southern Railway. Haynes Shops. It employed a lot of people. I think they're still kind of here in this because it didn't close until about 1995. But now it's just funny looking at all this because I know this isn't here now. It's just completely devoid of anything and empty. You know, just torn down, just empty land, empty lot basically, and it's friggin' massive. I mean, you look at the map here, and you can see it's a lot larger than Asheville. But the Haynes Shops are right over here. There's basically just like a metal scrapping operation going on here now, I think. Let's zoom on over here. But it looks like they got a lot of it right. I think that building might actually be new that says be careful on there because they were all about safety. The Southern, that was like their thing. Some of these are actually reused, I think. They do look a bit old. But anyway, these were the Haynes car shops. They were built in about 1925 and had 1,100 employees at one point. It was built to basically maintain, as its name was a car shop, maintain and rebuild cars for the railway, passenger and freight alike. And it, of course, closed in 1995, and it was massive. A lot of these tracks are still here. I know for a fact they are. Yeah, a lot of these tracks are still most definitely here. You got an old depot over here. Old depot. But the building looks pretty good. This is like the actual shop here. This could be new. I don't know that I've seen that. If it's not, they got it from the Norfolk Southern W-Line, which you know, I don't know. It might be. It looks new in the grand scheme of things. Looking at all the other assets and buildings, it definitely looks new. But it was a massive place. They got a lot of work done. Now it's just a friggin' scrap facility. You know, where things get scrapped, metal scrapping, all that good stuff. But it's massive. You could have cars all over the place. There's a few industries back here as well. Couple of freight houses, and there still are to this day. There's a couple. Yeah, that's crazy. I know there's an old concrete yard down here as well, which I believe is still here. Let's see. That's got to be it right there, possibly. It's like right in the bend. Oh, no, there it is. I'm an idiot. I'm a total idiot. Yep, so that's the concrete yard there. A lot of stuff, sprawling stuff going on here. There is a spur that runs back in there. This is kind of like the main yard that we're coming up to here. Let's zoom on down here. There we go. Then we got a little triangle here of railroad intersection. So if you look this way, I think this line is still open, or most of it. That goes to Greenville, South Carolina, down that way. Right here is kind of like some main yard office area, like the modern or current office is most definitely smack dab right here. Looks like they kind of got that right. I don't think Southern or Norfolk Southern would have changed that over, 100 years or whatever the hell. So it's pretty much still in the same spot. But this is the main yard here. Lots of friggin' tracks. Let's go down here a little ways. The little freight house or office. Back over here is the Piedmont Fairgrounds. Let's see if they did. Hot damn, they actually got those. Okay. That could have been too hard to do, but there's a big fairgrounds over here, the Piedmont Fairgrounds, which has like a track and a bunch of other crap. Big parking lot. It's a fair. It's what fairs do. Fairs do fair things, basically. But Spartanburg, big town. Big town. Big industrial town as it started out. Probably not so much now. Let's keep on zooming down here. The Amtrak station's down this way. Okay, kind of just dead ends. WTF, man. Hold the frick. Hold the frick. Those sons of guns. They didn't do it, man. They didn't do it. That's a shame. So, the now modern Amtrak station was here. It was an old station. It's been here forever. It had multiple platforms. It was multiple levels. It was a gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous building back in the day. Very historique. It's now just a regular ass Amtrak station. But there's also a crossing up there where the now CSX line goes underneath. I think it goes underneath the Norfolk Southern line, which this is. So the tracks cross over. And there's actually CSX Spartanburg Yard up that way. It's a tiny-ass yard. It's nothing like this one here. But, they could have added that, whatever. I guess they didn't need to, if you think about it in the grand scheme of things. But that was ex-Seaboard. So you had the Southern, you had the Clinchfield, ex-Seaboard, couple other small railroads. This was, why they kind of called this area Hub City or whatever the hell, because a lot of railroads came to and from this area. They produced a lot of textiles, and still pretty damn good size yard to this day. If you keep on going that way, it goes on to Salisbury, I think. Or wait, no, that's the other line up there that I'm thinking about. But yeah, this is the map. We just went east to west, and if you made it this far uninterrupted without skipping, first of all, congratulations. You did a wonderful job. I can't believe you sat through me monologuing about a route of an area that I love so dearly. But if you did, honestly, thank you. Now let's move on to the rolling stock.